the Aunty M Brain Tumours talk show on podcast.
So my name's Neil. I was diagnosed with a GBM grade 4 last Valentine's Day. I wasn't out with the wife, that makes it even worse. So I was at a black tie do at the Tower of London. I had no symptoms at all. Just before the do, my arm started to shake. I've had a TIA before, maybe 10, 12 years ago. And so I was like, it was just one of them. I'll just get on with it. Just be macho about the whole thing. So I sat through this meal for 3 hours and gradually got worse and worse. And if you're at a military meal, you're not allowed to get up for a wee. It's not the done thing. So at the end, my mate said to me, "You're not yourself, are you?" And I'm like, "No, I'm feeling a bit rough." So he took me outside, gave me some fresh air and some water. And then it sort of got worse. So my mate's wife had been playing in the band that was entertaining us. It was, she's a violinist. So she came down in her full uniform. They unlocked the Tower of London to get me out. And I gave her directions to the hospital. We get to the hospital and I self-diagnose. I say, "I'm having a TIA." They give me a scan and they went, "Well, it might be a bit more than that." And they say, "We're going to take you to another hospital that specialises in brain problems." And that's where it all starts to go wrong. I am aware that I'm trying to say something and what's coming out is not what I'm saying. And I wake up 2, 3 hours later on a gurney and my wife is asleep next to me on the floor, wrapped up in my monkey suit. What do you call it? Tuxedo. And apparently I'd had 2 rounds of CPR. And the only reason I knew that was because I had a really sore chest. The worst story is my wife's. So the girl I'm with is a friend of the wife's. They eventually get hold of the wife and they're like, "Don't panic, he's all right. And we're not sure what hospital he's coming on." We live outside of London. And so she was like, "Oh, all right, I'll wait." And then she says 5 minutes later, they went, "Oh, he's foaming at the mouth. You better get here quite quickly." And then she said the worst bit is they ring and say the nurse wants to talk to you. And my wife is like, "Is he dead?" And I wasn't dead, obviously, but she had probably more of a nightmare than I did. And then they did a biopsy and sort of within 10 days, I was told I had a grade 4 glioblastoma and was told I had 12 to 18 months and a 3% survival rate. So at the moment, next week, or this week, is 12 months. So we are flying to Greece to celebrate that I'm still here. So it has been a bit of an interesting ride. We started off with the standard chemo with the radiotherapy. And then we did 6 months of chemotherapy, 1 week each month. But we paid privately to have Dr. Paul Mulholland give me it's not immunotherapy. It's like running electricity through your tumour so your chemo knows where the target is. So we did that for 6 months. And then at the end of that 6 months, they said, "Well, you've responded really well to treatment. We're going to do another 6 months." But we then decided we wouldn't do the paying for it because it was costing us £1,000 a go, and you paid that and you did it 3 times the week you did chemo. So it was costing a lot of money. And I would have thought they were a bunch of charlatans, only it was Dr. Mulholland, who is absolutely everywhere in the British press, etc. So the result of it is I've had a scan and they've seen what they think might be necrosis, which is dead tumour. But the scan didn't work quite properly. So I've had a scan just 2 weeks ago and I've not had the confirmation that it's dead tumour. The bad news would be if it was resistance. But my tumour's not grown. It shrunk a little bit in that period. So considering what they told me it was all going to be like, it's not been anything like that at all. I've had a few bad days and I've been tired, but I've changed my diet. I've given up sugar in my tea, which has been the hardest thing of the whole thing. I drink not a lot anymore. And I eat a lot of kale and spinach and blueberries. Kale is dreadful, but I have it as a smoothie. Although we had it as a salad on Sunday, so that wasn't bad. But I am a great believer that diet has a lot to do with it, right? And that keeping fit is good for you. So I've been going down the gym fairly regularly, and it's like CrossFit classes, but they adapt it for me. So if I get too knackered, they let me step back. And then I do cold water swimming, and then I surround myself, and this is what I think is the best thing, is I go out with a lot of friends and we do a lot of stuff. I'm of an age where a lot of my friends are retired, and I also, for a job, was a London tour guide, and therefore I know a lot of guides at this time of year are not working, so we go out with them or other friends. And that gives me a reason to get out of bed. And I think that's the key thing to getting on with it all. It is like I keep my tablets downstairs. So when I need to take my anti-seizure tablets, I have to get out of bed to take them. So whether that makes any difference at all, I don't know. And I'm slightly addicted to blueberries because a friend of mine, brother, had a similar diagnosis and lived for 7 years. And he said it was all down to the blueberries. So I have blueberries every day of the night. Yeah. So it's been an interesting journey. They did say I could have an operation, but there's a 50% chance that I would lose the use of arms or legs or eyesight or the ability to talk, which we then weighed that up, and it's about quantity or quality. And I think I'd rather have a good life, what I've got left of it. I'm hoping that it'll last longer than the predictions, so rather than stay alive and not have a great life. So, and I've got to say a bit is my wife is great. She's younger than me by 16 years, and she's been very supportive. And what she does is we have a thing, like I'm like, if I don't want to get out of bed, you need to cajole me out, right? And there's occasionally I go, no, not today, and she leaves me. But we do, like this morning, she came in from the gym. She goes to a silly 5:30 or 6:30 class in the morning, and she came to the gym and she said, "You're going to go? I can give you a lift today." And so I went down there today where maybe I wouldn't have if she hadn't have come back all enthusiastic. The worst bit is, so I'm a born and bred Londoner where public transport works, whereas we now live on the edges of High Wycombe in Buckinghamshire, much harder. And so the best thing I've had I've got a little app that now shows me when the 2 buses an hour are coming. I can get out the house and get it straight away. So yeah, a lot of people ring Laura, my wife, and say, "Can I talk to him?" And I think they think I'm going to be, disabled really struggling to talk. I mean, clearly I can't speak proper English, but that's because I'm from London. And so that's the only thing. Was part of my work was driving people, and I've had to give up my licence. And then they did tell me that I'd be so tired I couldn't work. So I didn't do any work last summer. And I was a postman for 30 years. And now my new job, which I've just done for a decade, is not really work. I just turn up and talk nonsense to primarily Americans about whatever we're looking at. We go to Stonehenge and we go to Oxford and the Cotswolds. And if I hadn't woken up on where I did in the hospital, I would be thinking someone's diagnosed this wrong. It's only the fact that I've got a witness who's friend who saw me foaming at the mouth and collapsing, and therefore I've got people that I've not really felt ill through the whole, like I've had the odd bad day, but I would put that down to I'm 65 next month, and I would put that down to just getting old, not it being a brain tumour. So I'm taking tablets just at home, so it's not that much of a chore. Christmas, they said I didn't have to take it Christmas week. I took it Christmas week, and because we had like my wife's sister lives in Cairo, she's an international teacher, and we've got 3 young nephews. They're 14 to 10. They came over with their dad, and it was a bit chaotic, and I was on treatment. The worst bit was somehow I managed to lose one of the anti-sickness pills, and that's the only time. So I just take 2 of the ones you're meant to take if you feel sick, rather than the ones you're meant to take before the chemo. And that day we took the National Space Centre. About halfway through the day, I had to go and be sick. And then I just sat and drunk, whatever you want to say, vanilla milkshakes till I felt better. So during the treatment, even that, it's random. They all say, oh, you're going to be worse the next week. So I've had weeks where I haven't been worse, and weeks where I have. I've had a couple of people say, do you go to bed every night and think you're not going to wake up? I'm like, no, I go to bed thinking, what am I doing tomorrow? But I do think, and then it is a shock to the system without doubt, but you can either be positive about it, or you can just roll over and give up. And it's a sort of choice that you have to make somewhere. I read a lot of depressing books, like about the Holocaust or World War II, and you're like, well, they all survived. You know, that percentage of people survived. I was reading something about the American Air Force where you had a 1 in 4 chance of surviving your tour of duty. And you're like, well, clearly some people are that percentage. Yeah. And I'm not a believer in God or anything, but I am a bit of a believer in it is how you approach it.
This is the Aunty M Brain Tumours talk show. It's a show full of informative chat and inspirational messages. The Aunty M Brain Tumours talk show on podcast.